Smile.
No closet.
You're maskless. I am. Nice to see both of your faces. The person I was trying to keep healthy. Yeah, excellent.
Good. All right, I guess we ought to start with a roll of who's decided to.
Okay. Ron Stanko,
I'm here.
Mike Herr,
Here.
Tom McKeon,
Present.
Eric Ostenchuk will be absent, Rick Weinhoffer will be absent, Jen Arnett, Scott Miller.
Here. We have some guests with us today.
Yeah. They're the first topic, but you need public comment first.
Okay, good. Mr. Jade? Nothing? Can you hear me all right? Okay, good. First item on the agenda, 2232 State Hill Road, wanted to see photo spa land development waiver request. So, like them to speak first? Do you speak first, Jim, or?
The new owners are here.
So are they here for a reason, or are they here
So-
because of us?
They're doing some modifications out there. They want to do some modifications out there. And they've requested a waiver of the land development process for those modifications. So they're here today to ask the planning commission to recommend Borough Council to recommend the granting of that waiver of the land development process. You want to pull up the plan would be good?
Do you want
Do
to
you
give a
wanna-
brief overall?
Yeah,
of-
maybe
Sure. So currently today, the business operates as a full-service car wash. As you can see, those boxes with the car stacking, that's existing today, and that's going to remain. So what we want to do is expand the building, as you see closer to the northeast side, 750 square feet approximately. And then we also want to do a smaller addition on the southwest side, which is about 97 square feet. We plan to remove part of the building where it's shown in the dark gray, as you can see, and we want to add vacuums across the front of the building with parking spots. Should show 10 parking spots, and then to meet the requirements of the impervious coverage, we're going to be adding and removing some existing impervious coverage. And we're going to be converting from a full service to an express car wash model. And what that basically means is we won't be vacuuming people's cars, and so we're able to process cars a little bit faster through the tunnel. And car stacking will be lesser of a concern than it is today.
There's another plan sheet, I think, that shows the existing rooms. I'm not sure we put that up. Yeah, that's what's there now.
So they are removing the one building
Here.
right where Michelle has the crosshair down on the
Yes.
southwestern property line, whatever you want to call
That'd be
that line.
grass right there.
That's basically I think, a shed now.
Correct, yeah.
And the portion of the building that, the other part that's gonna be removed in, yeah, right there, what's in there?
So right now it's a cashier area. They actually added that in 2003 as an addition to the existing car wash tunnel. We're gonna just remove that so we can have a front flat facade to the building.
So structurally, it's not really necessary for
Sure.
the car wash operation.
Correct,
So they sold books and candles and
Cards,
Cards
yeah.
and a
Kind of
bunch
like a
of
lobby.
things
TV.
off the lobby
snacks.
prior to COVID, and then once COVID hit, they never really filled it with anything again. They just kind of had the snacking soda machines by the register.
So they'll actually be less impervious after this.
Yes. Yep. There'll be a net decrease in impervious and net decrease in building coverage.
And we're okay with zoning?
So that was gonna be my question. Unfortunately, my review comments were the bulk of
Right.
the letter higher. Do you have a chance to read the three comments under zoning?
We did, we reviewed it with our engineer, and we're still working on it, but
Okay,
I believe you wanted them to be addressed for the building permit, correct?
That's one of the options, assuming the planning commission's agreeable to that being a condition of granting the waiver, or
Okay.
recommending the waiver be granted. Did anybody on the planning commission have questions about the zoning review comments?
I apologize, I did not see them.
One was the buffer along the southern property line.
So one specific to parking, well, actually, one's, the first is a catch-all, just to kind of cover everyone and make sure we understand it's an existing grandfather non-conforming use. They are permitted to expand up to 50% of the existing building size. The proposed expansion is actually a reduction, so non-issue. The second one is regarding off-street parking. The zoning ordinance doesn't provide a specific off-street parking requirement for a car wash, so I'm considering it to be a service establishment. Based off the nature of the use and knowing that there's a tunnel that a person will be in a vehicle driving through, it makes sense to accept out the tunnel portion of the overall square footage, which should likely reduce the parking calculation, but I need those specific numbers to be able to confirm the 15 on-street parking spaces that would be provided will comply with what that required number will be. One is regarding the screening, again, grandfather non-conforming use, so this was constructed prior to the current ordinance. Since they are going to be making improvements in this area and taking out that building, my request was to consider putting fencing or screening in this area, since these are residentially zoned properties and that would be required in today's ordinance. And grading and drainage needs to be provided. I would think McCarthy's office would wanna see that as well.
Yeah, we would be fine with, if the planning commission and council are in favor of that, we'd be fine with them doing that at the building permit stage. We would just coordinate that with Kraft's office when we go to issue the building permit.
I apologize, I was late. Is this, taking down the existing building with the, no?
Just a small
Portion of
portion.
it.
Small portion, and the operation currently is a one-tunnel car wash, is that correct?
Yeah. Correct.
And then you're upgrading it, I assume, I can almost you're upgrading it to a new one-tunnel car wash, automated
Yep.
type operation.
Express.
Right,
Yeah.
so, yeah, I see a lot of these are coming down the pipe, in a lot of municipalities. So I know that they're, you know, the automation really increases the, speed with which you can, wash the cars through there. I think probably about 140 an hour, we get
Yeah, close to that, yeah.
120 to 140.
Yeah, you can go all the way up to 180 cars
Okay.
per hour. It just depends on how good your equipment is. So,
The one issue that I see come up on a lot of locations where, you know, I'm working on these and we're reviewing them, is the stacking that is provided from not only the pay kiosk, but also from the tunnel. I didn't know from the plan how much stacking you have identified.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
so we're shooting to locate the pay stations so that we can have approximately 4 to 5 cars in queue after the pay stations before entering the tunnel. And before the pay stations, I believe the plan shows, and we expect to have about, I don't know, what was it, 14?
I think there's 14,
15.
Yeah. Which, after talking to our engineer, they say that that's more than what we would need for a car wash like this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm seeing anywhere from 14 to 20 or so from the tunnel entrance. I think the tunnel entrance is the limiting factor, not so much the pig kiosk in this instance. So I just can't.
I think you have 17 from the tunnel entrance, right?
Yeah, we have more, yeah, if you include the queue.
So it's the algorithm of 140, 150, whatever the maximum you can do with the technology you have, does that fit with not backing up?
Yeah, I mean, you're right, there is an algorithm, there's a probability equation you can complete to evaluate. So if you anticipate this many cars are gonna service in an hour, you have a service rate of 140 vehicles in an hour, you can get the probability of the queue extending past a certain amount. Like I said, we're working on a lot of these, and That's the biggest question that's coming up. is
Right,
the
'cause then you
queuing
got one state.
and how does it impact anything on State Hill Road or anything?
One thing I'd like to add, sorry to interrupt you, but, when we say 140 per hour, he said 180 per hour, that is the max capacity the equipment can handle. I mean, we have several sites, none of them have hit
Oh,
that.
yeah, oh,
Yeah.
no, I know, I think that's an operational characteristic rather than the amount of traffic that you'll see. I
Right.
think it's, you can handle upwards of.
Yeah, those types of numbers are more so in a big city to do over 100 cars an hour.
Right.
So I don't anticipate, it would be lovely if
Yeah.
we could hit those kind of numbers, but I don't think we're gonna hit those types of numbers here. So I don't ever anticipate spilling out onto State Hill Road, because we're not vacuuming the cars before they go into the tunnel. Currently, the full service, you know, you have a bottleneck where you have to vacuum the car, then it goes into the tunnel. So we're skipping that step and going straight into the tunnel.
So is there any information that we have over the years with the existing situation of how many they were processing per hour and how many vehicles were getting to State Hill Road? Because it didn't appear to me that there was a whole lot of overflow onto State Hill Road, that you were managing the ingress and the exit.
Yeah, we haven't seen that since we've taken over.
We've been watching all of our fleet vehicles there for 24 years. And I can tell you, if I saw the line even back to the beginning of the building, I just kept going and came back later. And I think that's generally what you see people do.
Yeah.
If they see 10 cars stacked up, you know, especially knowing the vacuum is, that's gonna be a half hour, you just, I'll drive the dirty car and go tomorrow morning.
Yeah, I'm making this assumption, but is it gonna be a membership based?
So right now it is partially membership based,
Right.
and we're gonna continue the same model.
Right, and I see the same thing Jim sees. I go to Mr. Wash, and if I see that backed up, I know when to go. I go
Right,
yeah.
right before they close, or early in the morning, or Monday.
You don't wanna go between 11:30 and 1:30, when
Right.
everyone else goes on lunch break.
So, I do I've done these in a couple of municipalities, and what I've indicated to their planning commission and boards is that these are, like Jim said, they're self-regulating in that sense, where people are not gonna wait and back out on the State Hill Road, especially membership, and they're gonna know when to go.
That was my original concern too, about the queuing, but the fact that they've actually reintroduced the third lane, which they're not counting any stacking, and the fact that we're not doing full serve now. That it's the speed, that we're gonna get a lot more effective use of that same queue length than we do currently. I know nothing is abreast, Dick Henry originally built an internet car wash, and he always said they never put the throughput through that he could. They were too slow on the vacuuming. Dick always said that about, so.
Is the third lane existing?
Yes.
But it's getting wider right now. You're striping it wider
Um,
as part of this project.
honestly, we're just gonna be using cones to filter
So we-
into the 2 lanes, yeah.
Okay.
We're just gonna keep everything as is right now. We'll be having 2 lanes of pay stations and then use cones to filter from 3 lanes to 2. Yeah. A lot of times the cones are very useful in guiding cars and such operations.
So you'll still probably get another 6 or 7 cars out there if it would.
On a busy day, we can make
And
sure
that
that third
third
lane is
lane.
accessible and we will cone it in. On regular days, typical days, we'll just use the two lanes.
People stay in their cars through the whole process.
Correct.
And how many people are you gonna have working here?
2 on a normal day, maybe on a really, really busy day, 3 at the most.
What are your hours of operation?
8 to 6.
Okay.
And the new tunnel is more water efficient, I believe, than the old
Oh,
one.
yeah.
So I know Craig had spoken, from our office.
Yep.
About you were actually expecting a decrease in water and sewer usage, even though you're expecting an increase in the number of cars that you
Yeah.
could put through.
It's a
the-
lot
We were
more
just-
efficient.
Yeah, and we were talking internally with the engineer. Right now, they're using about 60 to 65 gallons of water per vehicle washed. At all of our sites, we use between 20 to 25. Maximum, we've seen 30. So
Is there a recharge system with the water? Or you-
there's a reclaim
Yes.
tank system.
Reclaim tank, that's.
Yeah,
it.
there's 2 tanks.
And this is gonna be reviewed as a building permit as well, correct? It has to go through that process.
So is there anything else in Jim's letter that we need to?
But honestly, most of our letters will be shown.
Yeah, what you were looking for, Michelle, was the landscaping for the screening. And is there anything else that you?
Just confirmation for the parking. I need that square footage the tunnel takes up to take out of the overall building square footage to calculate the off-street parking requirement.
All right, so you are reserving judgment on the off-street parking requirement?
Yes.
Yes, we don't know yet if the design will satisfy off-street parking, is that?
Correct, though at that point, if it doesn't, they would go to the zoning hearing board.
Designing issue, it's not a land development issue?
Correct.
Okay.
So is there a landscape issue? We started with landscaping, we have parking. Is there
Not-
a landscape issue?
Not if they're willing to put the screening in. And that would also be a zoning issue if they decide not to do it, would go to the zoning hearing board.
Do you have any objection to putting some screening
No.
back there?
We don't,
Put a good fence or screener, you don't know yet.
we don't know yet.
Okay.
You know, it's more so to suffice the requirements, so whatever's required.
I think you can do either.
You can
You
do
can do a
either.
planted visual screen, landscaping, or fences, privacy fences.
Okay.
Maintenance purposes, I'd suggest a fence, but.
Yeah.
call
For
it.
aesthetics.
Yeah,
I would say as a landscape architect, he would
Scott's
tell
gonna
you.
say He's gonna say landscape, he's only gonna say fence.
Is there any
Put 'em out, just-
standard along State Hill Road or anything that is more common, or is it some of each?
It's varies.
Yeah, I mean, you have some properties that have nothing, like this one, cause a lot of that area is, it's former Wyomissing Hills, so grandfathered non-conforming. And then there are areas you do have fencing, that fencing is also grandfathered non-conforming, cause it's higher than what would normally be permitted, it's kind of all over the place.
Does the planning commission have a preference?
About the landscaping?
Landscaping or fencing?
Well, I mean, fence conjures up like a business. Landscaping sounds like it's more softer.
As much as I would love the landscaping, I think the fencing probably serves a better purpose with the residential, houses in the back.
It's gonna definitively block headlights, it's gonna be a little bit of a
Yes,
sound
correct.
buffer.
Mhm.
It's easier long-term for maintenance, you don't have to worry about it dying and replacing it.
This is the wall.
Yes, correct. All the above.
No, she said the back by the,
Behind, so nothing will stay the road.
No, nothing is the other side.
no.
It's good, it's
And
a
you
Warwick
don't
side
have
of
to
the
wait
property.
to fill out, to walk more effectively.
Is there anything else?
So I guess a potential motion by the planning commission could be to recommend granting of the waiver for land development planning for the changes that are proposed at the auto spa, subject to, compliance with the review comments in the McCarthy letter. I think that would cover it.
Dated February 27th, 2023.
Right.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Next Tuesday, Borough Council will vote on this at their meeting at night. Oh,
So-
you don't have to show up. You don't have to.
Okay.
You're welcome to, but I can also follow up with you on Wednesday just to let you know.
Okay, and so what can we expect, or how does that typically work? So we wait for that, vote to come in, and then we can work with our architect to
So submit your building permit application.
Just make sure as part of that they have the grading plan.
Yep.
Probably wouldn't hurt if before that you can get me the number for the tunnel, just to make sure we don't have any zoning issues with parking.
We'll get that, yeah.
And then have them add a detail as part of the building permit plan set as to specifics on the fence, height, color, location.
Are they exceeding 5,000 square feet of disturbance? Okay. So no ENS.
Lucky them.
Yes.
Great.
Do you have any other locations in the area?
Delaware County, Bucks County, right?
Yeah, not around here. So I guess, yeah, the closest would be Delaware County. Bucks County
Are
area.
you looking to build more, or what,
Um,
what's your density in the market?
We haven't looked around here. We have 3 other locations. So, we would love to open more, we just don't, if we can find good locations, that's the hard part, so.
Have you taken over existing operations? in
Yes,
other
yeah,
locations?
all of our car washes were, takeovers, we never built from scratch yet, so then we just renovate, yeah.
All right, thank you.
By the way, I'm Shiv. This is my partner, Chris. Not sure if everyone knows.
Nice to meet you, good luck.
Yeah.
Thank you
Awesome.
for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll be in touch next
Yeah.
Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Yep.
Okay, number 4, I think, open space, in lieu of dedication.
I don't wanna steal Janice thunder in case she wants to speak on behalf of the rec board. Conversation.
Can you tell us what this says first before we get into the rec board?
Translation,
It's kind of
right.
confusing to me to start with.
Well, that's, the rec board was discussing this, which is how it ended up on this agenda.
So they found out it was confusing for me.
No, we found that we're being too cheap.
So, the borough's fee schedule, which is adopted annually by resolution, sets a fee that's called out in the subdivision and land development ordinance that says if you are subdividing or developing land that's going to result in more than one residential dwelling unit, you are required to pay a fee of $500 based off our current fee schedule for each one of those units if you are not dedicating open space on that land. So, you know, in the case of Mr. McCarthy's project, which, what are we up to? How many units? He's-
37.
He would have to pay a fee of $500 per unit. Same for any residential project that's coming through. Previously, I wanna say that fee's been in place for 20+ years, moving forward. So, looking at those fees, the amount being paid and what other adjacent municipalities are charging, the average, Spring Township, Muhlenberg, Exeter, when I called them or looked at their fee schedules, it's about $1,200 per unit. Interestingly enough, West Reading's not charging anything, and the response that I got was, oh, well, we don't have any land left, well, you can still have property redeveloped, so you still wanna have a fee in your fee schedule. So $1,200, was discussed by the rec board as their recommendation to the planning commission as to what we should consider raising our fee in lieu of providing open space per residential dwelling unit. This recommendation would also go to the borough's finance committee, which meets on Thursday, for them to weigh in as well, and then ultimately would be approved by council and we would revise the fee schedule if planning commission and finance are also in favor of recommending the fee be increased. Scott, Eric, I know you do a lot of work in other municipalities, I don't know if you have anything you wanna add as well as to what you see there.
I mean, that's pretty standard, the $1,200. I mean, sometimes it goes up a little bit higher than that, but I think given, that's a pretty good number to hit.
Yeah, great. Do we know how we compare in our open space requirement versus those municipalities?
No, that's a good question. I mean, we're average, I'm gonna say average for your zoning districts, it's about 20%.
Because that's the preference. The spirit of it is open space. This is, right, I mean, so this should be a number which goes some way to encouraging open space. And that in those like we've looked at some where it just hasn't, it just can't do it.
Yeah.
But where you have developers kind of on the fence, we want to encourage open spaces that.
Yeah, I was just gonna, it's difficult, especially on smaller projects, to kind of piecemeal open space altogether. So, if, you know, a lot of municipalities also have that you can donate or dedicate land in certain areas, you know, and pay for some of that. So that's another way that is done now. Even some municipalities also require commercial, if you're doing commercial development, there's also fees attached to that as well. But yeah, I think this is a good way, especially on a developed borough that we have here that doesn't have a whole lot of open space left, that this is the best way to maintain what we have.
Do we have a rec plan that identifies rec improvements and the estimated cost of rec improvements? Is there anything like that?
Architecture study for the park.
There's the Architectura study for the Stonehouse, and I would say any of the grant applications we've submitted for Berkshire Heights, also for the Stonehouse facility. We have some cost estimates put together for things at the pool and other park locations. You know, things that every year when the budget comes around, they're put on the wish list, but get cut just because the money's not there to do them. So, you know, the brief discussion we had about this at rec board, based off the 3 projects we know are coming in or will likely be approved at some point in this year, and the $500 fee, we have roughly a third of the cost to redo the Berkshire Heights playground. So, short of grant funding or one of those developers being willing to make an additional contribution, we're still not fully funded. But, you know, my recommendation as borough manager to the rec board and borough council would be to take these fees as they come in and earmark them for specific projects like Berkshire Heights that we've gone after 2 rounds of grant funding. We've gotten short funded every time and no improvements have actually taken place yet at that playground. So prioritize locations, work, cost, there's kind of your 5-year plan.
Because in the municipalities planning code, there's a provision for inclusion in your subdivision land development ordinance of collection of rec fees or dedication of land for recreation facilities. And the amount and location of land to be dedicated or the fees to be paid shall bear a reasonable relationship to the use of the park and recreation facilities by future inhabitants of the development or subdivision. So what I'm thinking about is just to make sure that when we adopt a higher rate and begin seeking collection of that, that we can justify to developers that the amount that we're asking for is reasonably related to some kind of an objective cost of future facilities or maintenance of existing facilities or some combination of that.
That I think is easy enough. I mean, give the 521 Van Reed, which hasn't actually come to the planning commission yet for land development approval, but likely will be. That's 198 units times $500 is roughly, I think, $103,000. You know, you're marking that money to go specifically to Berkshire Heights, which is the closest playground to that building once it's built, makes sense. And, you know, that could probably be part of the future conversation as well. What recreation facilities are closest to where the proposed project is and what improvements need to be made at that site.
I've seen plans where it's in region, so wherever the development is located, it's earmarked for that park in that general area.
And that would be relatively easy to do. We have 1 swimming pool that serves the whole borough, 3 playgrounds, and then the massive recreation space that is the parklands that, you know, always needs some kind of TLC or love put towards it.
Okay, so I think what we ought to work on, if planning commission supports this recommendation and the finance committee supports it, that we have a resolution that spells out some of, you know, where we're gonna use it and how it's gonna be used in order to justify the change in the amount that's being collected. Also, the existing amount that was reported, the $500, I remember because I just looked at it in that conditional use hearing that we have a $500 amount in the zoning ordinance for apartments in the
Oh,
redevelopment area.
yes.
So that would have to be changed as an amendment to the zoning ordinance. In addition, I mean, is there actually a line item in the fee resolution right now for the
Yes.
$500? Okay.
Yes.
So we have to do both.
So I have a question too. We've done a lot of projects around here. Is there a big pool of funds somewhere that we haven't spent on the recreation lines that are allocated based on the meager of
It's only the residential projects.
Sorry?
It's only the residential
So
projects.
I'm not sure what projects you're thinking.
Well,
I mean, we could put Band-Aids on Berkshire Heights.
the north office building up above Brickstone has got 100 apartments right?
So they did not have to pay the fee because the planning commission at the time agreed to waive it due to the on-site amenities that they were providing.
The same as the Met was the same, they provided amenities in excess of the value, and, was it, there was one more.
So we calculated the
The
$500.
Timochenko property in B two, right, that was the other one?
That's
That's
what's
the West
driving.
Reading.
Oh, all right, so that was there were only two.
The Arrow project over here, but the Met
That
here.
is now the Met.
Yeah, the one with the pool, that was a stuff like that.
But those are public amenities, so they're private.
Right,
Yeah.
But they serve the residents of the.
right, so the planning commission made a determination that they serve the residents, they provided the benefit intended in the ordinance, and they didn't require the payment of the fee.
And what we're talking about here is the project that's on Joy Board now, going from 500 to 1200.
Well, no, this would not be applicable to that or any other project. I mean,
That's currently pending. It wouldn't apply to currently pending projects. So the new Van Reed
So the
Road
ordinance
project.
wouldn't apply, but the part of the development process that we just talked to them about last week, where we did mention this specifically.
$500.
They would be grandfathered at $500,
You were
not
mentioning more
1,200.
than that at that meeting.
Well, Rick asked for more, asked them,
that doesn't mean they're required.
asked
No, I
them,
understand,
Well,
but
but
we're,
that was not a condition.
I understand,
but also-
but we're looking at making a condition something that could happen with this project. Why not? And not a condition
It's
for
already-
ordinance
It's for a new
purposes.
project.
It's already made a submission to the municipality, so it,
$500.
no, we've already had a trigger of the MPC, they've made a formal submission, and they're locked in the ordinances that were in place at the time of their submission. So we can't subsequently change and
But we are
retroactively go
getting,
back on them.
I think, a pretty good deal from them in this sense, and let me explain. With the Met and with, the place above the Brixton, they negotiated with the borough saying that what we are providing on site has a value greater than $500 per unit, so will you accept that? And the borough said yes. What the zoning ordinance requires for the new Van Reed Road development is that they must pay the $500 per unit, and it does not, they cannot use any on-site recreation facilities to offset what they have to pay to the borough. So that means that they're putting a pool on site, they're putting recreation facilities on site, but none of that will count against the $500 per unit. They must pay that in addition to whatever they spend on the on-site facility. So, you know, if we are basically doubling up on what we're getting from them for recreation compared to what these other projects did before we had that redevelopment ordinance in place.
So essentially what you're saying is $500 is a lid on the recreation application to the Berkshire Heights project now.
As to cash
per-
contribution.
As
per
to
year.
as to cash contributions. But what's hanging out there is clearly the number that we heard the other day, that the recreation board says just to clean up Berkshire Heights is $335,000. So, and then if you go back to the structures we're talking about, how much recreation can you buy for $120,000 or whatever recreation you're putting there, aside from,
You get a third of the
well,
project.
aside from the bungee cord on the roof of the 100-story building as recreation, so I'm not sure that counts.
So they're putting a pool.
Yeah, but it's also supposedly recreation, and I'm not sure that would follow my city all up to the roof to plant their pool. So there is a connection here between 500 and whatever they get for recreation in that area. And I think it may not have anything to do with this, other than the long-term implications of what we're trying to accomplish, is that land up there is not gonna have much recreation, and anybody up there that wants to recreate is gonna have to cross every street to get to Berkshire Heights, and we don't have a trolley system here, so we're trying to make everything work so that we're not building the Ritz-Carlton in Kensington and Philadelphia. And that's essentially what this looks like when you look at the houses that are around there and what amenities you need to beef it up to make the place look as good as the thing they're building there. that's my thought. Now, with $500, that'll go either way, but obviously, how that money is spent and how it impacts, I mean, it's not gonna help us to build a great building there and have a great apartment building and have a nice playground a half a mile away and not think that we haven't really accomplished anything, because all those homes in the neighborhood aren't gonna be able to use recreation facilities where their building is being built.
Ron, they still have to pay $500 a unit on top of what they do.
Yeah, I know, and we're saying that would go to, round the way,
Right.
to Berkshire Heights.
Well, that would go to the borough for the council to decide what to use on rec projects.
Because you
But
can't,
the rec board asks that the amount be changed from 500 to 1,200.
no, don't get me, well, I tried to go there 15 minutes ago, and he said, doesn't count, can't talk about 500 to 1,200, because that's not.
We can't change the
That, but
prior
in general,
application.
we're talking about changing it for future
Yeah, but
applications.
who the hell's gonna come around to give us $1,200 for a bill? I mean, we don't even have that on the drawing board.
Well, you
They don't
if you
have a
haven't done the
choice.
drawing board, it's too late.
No, I agree with you, I'm just saying, what can we do now, building
No.
this
Nothing,
building?
nothing,
can't.
we can't,
There's
but,
nothing.
so can we please increase it for the future?
Yeah, that's what this is about, is for projects that we don't even know about today, that they would pay at the higher rate. And this current project is what has brought to our attention the fact that maybe we should do better with what we collect. So we're looking ahead to those future projects
Well,
and making sure that.
I'm 100% on board with everything. It's a status quo picture. The question I have is, when it's all said and done, where are the kids gonna play in this 1,200 unit apartment building? And what's gonna happen to the homes in that area that probably sell for $150,000 to $200,000, and the parking and the schools and all the stuff that they were talking about here? What's gonna happen there? Don't say in the future it'll look better. I'm trying to figure out how we make it the best now and not have to fall victim to, the poor people in the area that can't, not poor as in economically, but the people left with looking at a giant apartment building and no amenities for them to take advantage of. Now, if you think all this works, and we'll see what happens after it's over, that seems to be where we're going, because there's nothing else we can do.
No, I think the council does not put a high priority on the
Next to our
parks.
office.
Council does not put a high priority
Stephanie
on
Flynn,
the playgrounds. And unless and until
the Ryder project.
council is willing to
200
fund them, these kinds of contributions
Okay.
will help.
Pretty slow.
Well, you're sort of like saying the same thing I'm
Yeah,
saying,
yeah,
you're
yeah,
talking
okay.
about hockey and I'm talking about football. We're
Okay.
going to the same place. We're not doing enough for recreation, but that's not the business of this committee.
Correct.
If we do what we're going to do here, it's be the best that we can do with what we have.
That's all
And we're just
recreation.
hoping that the recreation board can convince them to do more for the people that we think might be getting shortchanged here with recreation.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to increase the open space fee from 500 to 1,200.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank
Guys
you.
have it.
Thank you very much.
That was easy.
My boss said the same.
Who is the developer of the apartment building?
Stefano.
Foligno.
Believe. So the only thing you could do is ask them to increase their contribution,
And we,
Which Rick did.
yeah, we're,
which you tried.
Well-
What Rick did as part of
Rick-
public comment.
Yeah, at the conditional use hearing.
and he didn't come out and say no, but he also didn't say yes.
Hey, so we consider it.
Yeah.
Think so, see what we can do down the road.
So
And then there's Mr. McCarthy's project.
Yeah, that's the,
He's gonna get under the $500.
Is it too soon to do anything with that, or is that?
well, our project's probably dead with the bids I got in on Friday, so you don't have to worry about our $500. You're not getting any of it. We're gonna have an office out front with 10,000 square feet vacant in the back of the building.
Do we have an extra 20?
All right, so do we have, anything else under open space and fees? We have to do anything there or not? That's it, we did it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, old business? Old business? Anything you wanna redo on yours that you were talking about?
On our project?
No, just kidding. New business? Nothing? Okay. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.